Welcome back to the Leaders of Leaders podcast. And I'm here today with Inspector Ben Dimmock from Bedfordshire Police. G'day, Ben.
Hi, Brett. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, no worries. So, mate, we've been chatting offline around some of the things that you guys are doing over in the UK with your wellbeing. And this is something that you do as a part of your job. So can you just explain a bit about who you are, what you do, and the type of things that you do?
Yes. So I've been a police officer in the UK for 24 years now, and a police inspector. And for the last 4 years, I've been leading on wellbeing in policing. So I'm the force wellbeing lead. So it's my full-time job as a police inspector to lead a dedicated wellbeing team. And I've got a team of 6 of us. So within our police force, our roles are completely to look after the welfare of officers and staff, all around, mental health, physical health, predominantly. But yeah, it's so I've got a brilliant team who just look after the wellbeing of staff. But back in policing, when I joined, we didn't have anything like that. Yeah. So now having a dedicated team that's looking after wellbeing is huge, and I'm so proud of it.
So you've been in the police force for 24 years. How long have you been doing this wellbeing role?
4 years. 4 years I've been doing it. I was really poorly with depression around about 12 years ago, and kind of hid it. And back then in policing, and probably in society generally, I think there was a huge stigma. And there, I don't think we're ever going to completely get rid of that stigma, but we're much better than we used to be. But so back then, I really had to hide it with fear that I was a man, I was a husband, I was a dad, I was a police officer. There's no way I could say that I was suffering from depression. And that probably made me more ill. And then I always said, if I could change an organization, change the culture, make it a psychologically safe culture to basically say, I'm not okay, that's all I want to do. So now, fast forward 12 years to now, we've got a dedicated team that is there to support officers and staff. We've come on leaps and bounds, and that's all we do. I just want to create an organization and a culture that people feel safe to say, I'm really struggling, and then get the right support that they need.
And it's policing is not an easy job physically or mentally. So how do you then balance that, being on edge and being in the zone, to then stepping back and going, hang on, we need to step in here to, support the team?
Yeah, I mean, police officers now, the job, I mean, it's changed massively even when I joined 24 years ago. But the job is full of trauma. It's full of, people are getting assaulted. Officers, I suppose it's the same in, where you're from, but it's the officers are getting assaulted. They're seeing some horrendous incidents, that are traumatic, and that trauma sticks constantly. So if those officers don't feel safe to say that was a really difficult job, then that trauma is going to continue to stick until at one point they're going to explode. So we just want to create an environment through the culture that we're building. And it's not just having a wellbeing team, it's from your chief officers downwards to supervisors, to sergeants, first line leaders, to make people, to have those check-ins with people, to keep an eye on their teams, which is all easy stuff, what they should be doing anyway. But to then recognize those early signs and say, are you okay? And then, are you really okay? What support can we give you? So as a team, as a wellbeing team, we're just a bolster to that support that every supervisor, first line leader should be doing and checking on the staff. But if we don't do it, we're not going to have healthy cops that progress on to brilliant careers ahead of them. So it's so important. So welfare, wellbeing is the most important thing in policing right now.
Yeah. So then how do you then you've got new recruits or someone transferring coming in, how do you instill that culture into them where they, may not have come from that culture, or a new recruit or something?
Yeah, really important question. I think the generation now, we've got a lot of younger officers coming in. When I joined, it was all different ages of people that joined. Now you're school leavers, college leavers. So, and I think generationally, the stigma around mental health has changed anyway. People are more in tune with their mental health. They're more, I would say, confident to say, I'm not okay. And we are seeing that. But we do a lot of training. So when new recruits come in, we do a whole day with them around well-being, signs and symptoms, things to look out for, self-care tools, and then we see them again when they finished being tutored. So we have another whole day with them where we can really reflect and go on what experiences they've had so far, and then we continue. We do sergeants training, inspectors training, so leadership training to give leaders the tools to be able to look after their teams. And then we go in and do different bespoke workshops and pop-up surgeries to really keep emphasizing the point around all the support that's available. So it really does work. But you've got to be proactive, and that's what I'm really proud of as a team. We're not just going to be reactive. We've got to be proactive around well-being.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the message that I'm trying to get out there is that we've got the EAPs, the reactive strategies that we can put in place. But if we're looking for those early warning signs, those indicators that something's not quite right with someone, that's when we need the proactive steps to go, hang on, this is the support we've got for you. We're going to get around you and support you through this.
Absolutely, and Brett, you're right. I mean, EAP, we've got that. It's great. We talk about posters, slogans, initiatives. They're all brilliant. They're all great apps on your phone, wellbeing apps. They're all brilliant. But if you haven't got a culture that is built around psychological safety, none of that matters.
Yeah.
So it starts with people feeling safe to say, I'm not okay, and yes, I need that support, because all of these things won't work if you've not got that psychological safe space.
Yeah. And do you focus on also extending that support to the informal supports around that person, for example, a spouse, the community that's around that officer?
But it's really important. So families, as we know, especially as police officers, with cancelled rest days, with working late, extra overtime, with the trauma, all the mental weight that officers and staff carry, then they go home and their families experience it. It's important that we have that relationship with families. So we do a webinar online for police families. We probably do about 3 a year. So we could talk to families around signs and symptoms, about how to look after their loved ones in the job. But also we find it's probably the same in obviously Australian forces and stuff like that. But those that find themselves under investigation through misconduct, obviously that has a huge impact on officer well-being. And obviously, I know it's a horrible thing to talk about, but officer suicide is, within the UK nationally, there's been lots and lots of press around suicides in policing. When you look at figures around that, the majority of those that have taken their own life are those that have been under a misconduct investigation. So we have got a peer support, a huge peer support network within the force, that we've got then trained welfare support officers that can look after those officers and staff under investigation. But to your original question, we've actually then extended that, and we can now support families. So we recognise that if you've got an officer that's under investigation, they're going to be really struggling themselves, but that's going to have a huge impact on their family. So we can deploy into their family to support them through the whole of the investigation that their husband or wife is under. So we're really, really alive to the fact that families and policing is a huge link.
Yeah. And do you find there's much take up in the families accessing that support as well?
It's slow, I would say. So there is. I mean, we set up this police family support officer role back in November last year, and we're probably supporting around 6 or 7 family members, which is great. That's 6 or 7 family members that were really struggling. So
that's
we
6
just
or
got to
7
keep
more than what you were previously as well. It's a massive increase.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important, and because families are the key. Families are, if we haven't got our family support within policing, they are the rocks, because they're the ones that pick up the pieces, when it all goes wrong.
Yeah, and especially with the stress and the trauma that you guys are looking at, day to day, multiple times a day, it's going to be hitting you, in the head, in the heart. This is when you need to go, hang on, I need this support around me as well.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I say to all officers and staff, communicate. Obviously, you can't tell your family everything about particular jobs, but talk to them about how you're feeling, because they won't understand. Because some of the things that police officers see on a day-to-day basis are in people's worst nightmares.
Yeah.
Some of the trauma, some of the horrendous incidents, when you're cutting someone down from a tree that's hung themselves, or when you go into a child death or something like that. These are the most horrendous things that you'd only ever see in your worst nightmares, and families don't know that, and they don't know what's in your head. So it's important that you try and offload to, well, I'd say your family, knowing that you've got your family there to support you, but offload to a trusted peer, trusted someone, because there's so much you need to do and talk. If you talk about it, it's the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially with men, that communication of, recognizing that I'm not okay and then verbalizing that to someone else, that can be quite a tricky thing. So then how then do you, coax that out of them?
It's tough. I think, over time, men, we are not very good about talking about our feelings. I think we are much better than we used to be.
Yeah,
And
for
I go
sure.
back to me, when I was poorly 12 years ago, I didn't want to talk about my feelings because I thought, well, I'll be seen as weak. I'm a man, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a police officer. There's no way I can talk about my feelings. But it's about continuing to get that message across, and that's all we can do is keep them at the message that it's not a sign of weakness.
Mm.
If you're a man, it's a strength. And I say that to, for example, a month ago, I felt really overwhelmed with some home life and work, and I felt I was struggling again. And I spoke to my team and I said, "Hey guys, I'm really struggling here." And people go, "Can't say that, why not?" It's a strength. I believe really believe it's a strength to show that you are struggling and to go, do you know what? I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to get some support. And that's what, leaders need to show some vulnerabilities. And again, that's why about creating that psychologically safe space. But because if leaders show that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to not be okay, then that's everyone else is going to feel that's okay. So
Yeah.
I think with men, we've got some networks and we've got some support, but yeah, I think generally I'm seeing that, the culture is shifting massively and that men particularly are saying, yeah, do you know what? I will seek help.
Mm.
We're not there
And
yet.
that's,
I don't think we're there yet, but we're
yeah,
getting there.
yeah. And that's, steps to get to, like, it's not going to happen overnight. We know change doesn't happen overnight, but, there's a progression of getting to that point where men are more comfortable to go, hang on, I need to say something.
Yeah, 100%. We will, but it's messaging. You've got to keep being able to about proactive. You've got to keep that messaging out, keep those that dialogue going, and yeah, and hopefully we'll just help that one person. That one person will speak to the next. But I talk about we've got this brilliant peer support network within our organisation. So we've got my wellbeing team, but I've got about 170 peer supporters. So across the organisation, these are trained listeners that are there, mental health first aiders, and they can be there to support their colleagues. So that's huge. So I
Yeah.
think, with the wellbeing team, a peer support network, we're really continuing that messaging that it's okay to say you're not okay.
Yeah, cool. And you mentioned earlier too about having that leadership training for, the inspectors and those other ranks.
Yeah.
How do you find when people step up to a role? Because what I find because I'm in the community services sector, and what I find is that people are promoted because they're good at their job, not good at managing people or having those difficult conversations. So then how then do you go, this is the leadership that we want to have in this organization?
Yeah, and I think that's probably one thing we are very good in policing. I think maybe historically we weren't. People were promoted because they were just good, but they were still rubbish managers. They were
Yep.
good at the job, but they weren't good at managing people. We've come on massively since then, and I think other industries they put people in these management positions, but they don't know how to manage people, and that's where it all fails because our people come first. It's not
Yeah.
it's not rocket science, is it? But so I think we're very good in policing that, you know, now interviews, assessment processes have come on so much that they're really around your own um, emotional resilience, they're around your own emotional intelligence. So it gets to know you as a leader, you as a person, who you are, to be able to manage people, not just the job. When you talk about people, people and processes won't happen if you haven't got your people on your side.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important to get your people behind you. And that comes from creating that safety, creating that space where people feel trusted, cared for, and then processes and work happen automatically. So I'm a big believer of that. So we do have leadership courses. We do train people on the competency side of things, how to do the job, but we've really, on our leadership courses, is around getting that person to explore themselves as a leader, and how they lead others. It's so
Yeah.
important. And then that then creates these wonderful, safety, kind, caring spaces that people can thrive.
Mm, yeah. And, thinking about that, the people that are part of this organization are the assets of the organization. So, looking after them, that's going to progress the organization, progress the culture. If you haven't got them, then that's not going to happen.
Absolutely. And I think people forget that, we're all, we've all probably all fallen foul of it and are guilty of it to some degree, that the job can take over to a degree because the job's got to be done. Of course it has, and in policing, if the job doesn't get done, people's lives are at risk, so the job has to get done. But if you want to step up and be a manager, you've got to realize that part of your role is to protect your staff and to look after them. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be a manager, you shouldn't be a leader. So with rank comes responsibility, and that responsibility is care. But it's not hard. I don't think it's hard. It's not hard to check in on your colleague. It's not hard at the end of a shift to go, that was really, really difficult. I can't imagine what that was like. Let's come and have a chat, or what support can I give you? These are simple things that can make such a huge difference in someone's life. It's not like rocket science.
It's really not. And it's like, the micro moments that can make the biggest impact. Because, you might go, oh, well, that was a shit shift. That was a really hard emotional shift. But then just leaving it at that can be enough. But if you can go that 2-3 steps further and delve deeper into that, that's when you're going to get that really big benefit of, that conversation and communication.
I say when I deliver training, my team deliver training to managers, I say, you've got to really listen. Okay, you've got to really listen, because we're all busy. We're on our phones all the time. We're on our laptops, all on emails. Yes, that's not going to go away. But if someone comes up to you and says, "Can I have a chat?" You've got to drop everything. And you've got to be visible. You've got to be present for that person. I've been there and I've seen it where I've gone to one of my bosses, and in the past, and gone, like, I'm struggling with this and I need to talk to you. I know they're not really listening to me. At that point, they've lost me, because I know that they don't really care. So I'm not going to tell them about what's on my mind, because I know that they're not really interested. So I say that when someone, especially if someone's struggling with mental health related, concerns or an illness or something they're struggling with, you only have one opportunity to listen to that person, because for them to pluck up the courage to come and talk to you is a huge thing. And if you're not engaged with them, you've lost them. But if you listen, and you really listen, and you show that person you care, you're potentially going to change their life and help that person massively. So it's not hard. We just need more leaders, more managers to step up and go, I'm going to be present. I'm going to really listen to what my team need.
And if they're coming to you and saying, "Have you got 5 minutes? Can we chat?" and you you're there, but you're not really there. You're not really listening. They're not going to come back to you. You've taught them not to come to you.
Absolutely, and I see it. I still do see it with some managers, because we've all got pressures. We've all got emails stacking up. That I would rather put my computer down, put my phone down, and let those emails rack up. And the fact I might have saved someone's life. I know that's talking extreme, but you might do, because you don't know what's going on in that person's head. And if they come to you because they genuinely need help, you don't know what they're thinking and feeling. And that 5-10 minutes of you giving them all of you, not just half of you, because the other is listening to the radio or listening, looking at your emails. You give them all of you, you could save that person's life. And you can't underestimate that.
A 5-minute investment here might mean another 20 years of that person living.
Absolutely. Or going off sick, going off long-term sick, or saving their life. I know it seems extreme, but it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
So then how then do you go, with that leadership training? You're going, these are the keys you're looking out for. These are the words. How do you train that into your leaders?
So our leadership courses, and I talk predominantly around sergeants and inspectors, say first and second line leaders that we would call them. They have a whole week's leadership training now.
Okay.
And my team, within that leadership team is all about leadership models and things to teach them to be better leaders. But we have a whole afternoon with them as Wellbeing to talk about tools, to talk about, and I talk it like a Batman belt. This is your tool belt, And if you've got someone that comes to you in crisis, this is what you can pull out your tool belt, and this is what you can use. So we'll give a tool belt of resources, support available that people can go to. But we'll also really drill down on, right, okay, these are the signs and symptoms for depression, for anxiety, for PTSD, for, emotional fatigue, for, all those different things. So, and these are the key things as leaders you need to look out for, because, when you start seeing some of these signs and symptoms, that's when you need to intervene. That's when you need to step up as a leader and go, come on, let's go for a chat. Let's go for a cup of tea. Let's go and have a conversation. Are you really okay? You don't seem yourself today. And that can make such a huge difference. And even if that person doesn't talk to you straight away, what you've done is sow the seed. Because when I was poorly 12 years ago, no one said to me, are you okay? I must have been poorly. I probably looked poorly. But, I was very different. I know back, I look back, but no one asked me if I was okay. But if they had have asked me if I was okay, I'd have probably said, yeah, I'm fine. But what it would have done is it would have sowed the seed in my head that when I feel safe and ready, I can go and speak to that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, part of the indicators you're looking for are behavioral, not just what's said. It could be, something was missed, like, a detail was overlooked, or a note wasn't completed on time, or something that's, you'd look at it and go, oh, well, that's just normal. But then you go, hang on, these are the little things that we need to be looking for that add up to the big things.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. Someone not performing, someone not completing a task on time, that might be because they've just forgotten, but it might be the start of something that is triggering to something else. So it's just, but this is where, as I said, that's where line managers make their money. That's why you get promoted, because you should be getting promoted because you care and because you generally want to make a difference to your team, because they're the ones that are doing the job for you. They're the ones that are doing the job. You're supervising, they're doing the job for you. They're making, so your job is to care for them and create that environment that they can feel safe and they can thrive. And that's where they feel safe, psychologically safe, when they feel that it's okay, and they've got that culture that, they will thrive and the work will come next and they'll do a brilliant job. But the people that don't feel safe to say, I'm not okay, that's when it all goes wrong. And that's when it will come tumbling down.
Yeah. And, looking at your leadership, and that there's, times when you may have dropped the ball, you may have, not made the right decision. How then do you admit that to a team and go, hang on, I wasn't there for you when I needed to be?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. And, we're all human, we all make mistakes. And, to be a good, effective leader, you need to be honest and say, I didn't get that right. And I know, as an inspector, my team, I know I don't there are times where I don't get things right. And but it's important then to go, look, I didn't get it right. I could have done that differently. And that's when teams respect their managers, their leaders, because they're open about it. It's the ones that try and cover it up, or they don't, they just think, well, but that's where, it's about using your team. And I'm very much, my team are my everything. So I'll involve my team in my decision. I mean, okay, it depends on the situation. If I'm, although my main role is well-being, there are times where I have to do public order policing and I have to police a protest as a commander, or a serious incident. I haven't got time to talk about my team. Oh, what should we do there? What do you think we should do? Because we've got a massive incident. I'll have to make a decision, and you're going to have to follow my decision. But that's a one-off. But ordinarily, on day to day, I'll involve my team and we'll make those decisions together and we'll talk about it. But still, if I make the wrong decision, it's about saying, do you know what, I didn't get that right. But I'll reflect on it, I'll review it, and we learn from it. And that's when we come back stronger.
Yeah. And to, having that conversation and going, look, I've let you down. And that's what builds the strong culture in organizations, rather than deflecting it, not admitting to it, being closed off and blaming other people. It was, you've taken responsibility. That's going to build that strong culture.
100%. I mean, I only look about 4 weeks ago, I could feel a bit overwhelmed myself. There was, I had some things going on personally and professionally, and I definitely didn't feel myself. And I was really ratty with the team. I was really off, and they hadn't done something that I'd asked them to do. And And I was quite angry. And I thought, okay, right. And I stepped back and I thought, do you know what? That's not me, Ben. That's not you. You're clearly like, a bit under the weather. And then I reflect on it, and I had a meeting with them a couple of days later, and I sent them an email saying, look, guys, I'm sorry, I wasn't at my best, and I shouldn't have you know, behaved like that, or I shouldn't have shouted at you or whatever. But the reason why I did was this, but I could have dealt with it in a different way. So, but that's about me recognizing that I wasn't at my best, and I was struggling a little bit. And that's okay, and they were brilliant, they were lovely because, they know, okay, well, thanks, Ben, you're really honest. And you said you were struggling. How are you? Do you need any support? Which is lovely. Hold on, I'm the boss. But, but it's lovely for them to go, well, what can we do for you? So that's what makes a team brilliant.
Yeah. And it's not around, and it's not about you as the team leader telling them what to do. It's working together as that team. But and you may not be the hands-on leader. It might be someone else who's great as an aspect of what you need to do, and they step up to be leader for that aspect of the project. It's leaning on the experience of those around you.
I've been in that situation where I've wanted to do everything. I've wanted to, I'm the boss. I look at Wellbeing. I've been doing it for 4 years. There's nothing I don't know about it. I want to do this and I'll do it. But actually, my team need me to give them responsibilities. They need me to give them tasks. They need me to trust them that they can go and do that job. So I've had to really reflect on myself over the last year and say, okay, Ben, you're the team leader, but no, you've got a brilliant team that can do some brilliant stuff. Give them the tools. Give them the tasks they need and let them thrive. You supervise it, you monitor it and oversee it, but you don't have to take on everything. And that's why I think, for me, I've gone through those stages. I've tried to take on everything and keep things for myself because I feel I have to, because I want to protect. But actually, delegation is really, really important as a leader, and trusting your staff that they're brilliant enough to do that job for you.
Yeah. And then how then do you balance that delegation of, I need to offload this to someone else versus, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done the way that I want it to get done?
Yeah, and I guess that's a risk as a manager, as a leader, that you got to try, you got to know your team, you got to know their strengths. So if I've got something that's time critical and I need something doing, who am I going to give it to that I know is going to deliver it in the right time for me? Or do I need someone that needs a bit of development? Do I give them a task that I know they're going to find tough, but actually it's going to push them to develop and learn? So you've got to know your team. That's really, really key as a leader anyway. Knowing your team is the most important thing. But also, then as an effective leader manager, I'll put in reviews and check-ins and say, okay, well, how are you getting on with that? How are you doing with that? Are you struggling with that? Anything more I can do to support you? So again, it's just that's where teamwork is key.
Yeah. And you being the Wellbeing team, you do wellbeing check-ins not just with yourselves but with the general organization. Do you see that there's much feedback that's received, that's a accepted way of getting feedback, or is there a pushback on that?
So I would say, out of my team, I would say 60% of their roles are doing welfare interventions. So that might be someone knocking on their door going, I'm having a bad day, or I'm in crisis, or I'm suicidal. So, or booking in with them. So, we probably, as a team, I mean, we're, as an organisation, for Bedfordshire Police, we are probably about 2,000 police officers and about another 1,000 police civilian staff, police staff. And we probably average around about 100 people a month coming to see us that are struggling. And that can range from, normally it's, it's stress, it's anxiety, trauma. So they're probably the three categories that come under. So people come see us, and then we get feedback from them around, because back in the year, that now it's all about, it's not just policing, right? But any industry you're in, is so what? So you're doing all this, but so what? Where's your data? Where's your quality, or they call it qualitative and quantitative data, don't they? But so where's everything now? If we're going to invest in you, we want to see a return. I get that. Wellbeing world, it's a bit tougher because you can't really necessarily show effectively the difference you're making. So I can't say for sure that my team are stopping someone from going off long-term sick, But I know that we're supporting, for example, like every month, we're supporting at least 3 people that are suicidal. So I could say to my bosses, I'm telling you, you're investing in a team, a well-being team, that's supporting 3 people, and we're stopping them from taking their own life. That's
Yeah.
huge.
That's
But the data,
massive.
but data doesn't show that, and
Yeah.
that's the problem. I can't show you that in data. So I do have this bit of, a bit of pushback with some of my managers around. I can't give you all the data you want, but
Mm.
I can show you. But we do get some brilliant feedback, and that's what is key. Where possible, we'll get feedback. We send a feedback form out to everyone we see. Not everyone completes it, but some of the feedback is wonderful. That if it wasn't for so and so, I would have left the organisation. If it wasn't for so and so, I don't know what I would have done. So it's powerful. It's
Yeah.
powerful, and it just shows me if we didn't have a wellbeing team, I don't know where the organisation would be.
Yeah. So then other like police organisations around the country that have this wellbeing as well, or is there just a couple?
Yeah, I mean, it's so probably, as I said, we've been going about 4 years. We have a national police wellbeing service called Oscar Kilo. They're brilliant, but every force now has got something. There are
Mm-hmm.
some forces, because we've got 43 forces in England and Wales. Okay,
Okay.
so and obviously out of those forces, you know, there's different resources. Some have got a big team like me, some have got 1 or 2 people doing well-being. So it varies, but we're moving in the right places. I mean,
Yeah.
I get some people reach out to me from some of the, some of the Australian forces, New Zealand, and well-being. That you guys have got some of the same welfare problems that we've got in the UK.
Yeah.
So in policing. So on LinkedIn, I've got some great contacts with people from some of the Australian forces and stuff. And yeah, it's everywhere. It's
Mm.
everywhere, and whatever force you're in. So I think it's only going to build welfare
Yeah.
and well-being in policing. It's not going away, and we've got to get better at it, and we've got to become more. But every force across the country and across the world has got to invest in this.
Yeah. And the good thing about being, online is that you can go to your connections on LinkedIn that, might
Yeah,
be here in Australia or might be, the next county over. It's let's have a chat. What are you guys doing that we can implement
yeah.
here? Let's share resources and tips that, are going to progress this well-being of officers.
100%. And that's what, I'd never usually used sort of LinkedIn before, but it's a really powerful tool because and the reason why I did, because there were so many people saying, oh, well-being in policing is awful. And I'm like, hold on a minute, let's step back a bit. Yes, there are things we can do to improve it. Of course there are. But
Mm.
there were some brilliant things going on as well. So I started to want to share what we were doing as a force, as an organisation in Bedfordshire, in the UK, and then what other forces can copy us and share ideas. We can link in, and that's now spiraled into, actually people from other countries coming in and go, wow, I love what you're doing with that idea. We want to do that in our force. And I think, wow, this is the power. Of
Yeah.
course, there's some negativities to social media, but actually there's some really powerful things you can do as well. And there's some wonderful people out there that are doing some incredible things, but we're supporting each other. So for me, linking in with someone in Australia and saying, actually, we're doing this in the UK. How about you do that in your force? Yeah, it's incredible because we're all in
Yeah.
this together.
Yeah.
We're all we're all a blue light family, and if we can all share ideas, what a difference we'll make. How powerful that is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And also too, like, well-being is well-being. You might have some cultural differences there, but
Yeah,
generally the bulk of
yeah,
it is going to be pretty similar. So, it's just a matter of getting those cultural differences right to have the biggest
yeah.
impact for, your culture.
Of course, and it's a really important point. Cultural intelligence is huge, and so
Mm.
whatever that means within where you work is that's for you to take responsibility to own that, to know what the different cultures, to have an understanding of what that means. Because yeah, there are some cultures, um, you know, that how you approach it would be different
Yeah.
to someone else. So it's about having cultural intelligence is key. And and actually we've done some brilliant cultural intelligence training across our force, to sort of make people more alive and aware to how your behaviours, what you do, and how that impacts on various cultures. So yeah, really, really important.
Yeah. And also then being mindful of the cultures, like the heritage culture, like, um, like here in this area, you've got, you know, New Zealand and Pacific Islanders, and the Pacific Islanders, they generally won't look at you while you're talking to them. They'll look down as a sign of respect. So it's being
Right.
mindful of
Okay.
that culture within the culture of the
Yeah.
business as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really important, I guess, for police officers. You know, and I look at people and how they respond to that as well, because
Yeah.
that might be perceived differently, mightn't it? If someone's not looking at you, and you might think, well, actually, is that something suspicious to worry about? But
Yeah.
actually, that's how their cultures, that's how their heritage, how they've grown up, it's how they live. So, yeah, it's about really knowing your communities, and
Mm.
that's why it's so important as police officers to know your communities, know your people that you're policing, and
Yeah.
who you're supporting. Because, yeah, if you don't, that's when relationships get fractured.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So Ben, we've got a bit of a tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who it
Oh,
is.
wow.
And the question that's been left for you is, if you could have your time over again, what's one thing that you'd do differently?
That's a brilliant question. Um, I think, well, I've always wanted to be a police officer.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like, yeah, it's one of what I've always wanted to do ever since I was little. So I don't think I'd ever do something differently. But I think we've all got things in our lives that we wish we'd said something differently, or
Mm.
we'd, behaved differently. And but yeah, I love my family. I think that's a really difficult one. It's because I don't think there's anything I would want to do differently. I think other than, I think maybe, I think we could all say, it sounds really cliche because I'm thinking off the spot, but like, just be kinder. I
Yeah.
think, I look back and think, oh, I wish maybe I'd have said that differently, or something. But I don't think there's anything I would want to change particularly, or do something differently again. But I think just be kinder, be more thoughtful. And I think because over the years I've learned so many more things. We talk about well-being and about self-protection. But actually, no, it's probably actually a good point. When I was poorly 12 years ago, I wish now I'd said earlier
Mm.
that I wasn't feeling great, because that probably could have stopped me from getting poorly.
Yeah.
So about opening up those conversations. So what would I have done differently if I could live over again? Is be more open about how
Yeah.
I'm feeling.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time today, Ben.
Oh no,
Um,
Brett, it's been lovely to meet you, mate. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great
yeah.
chatting to you.
Yeah, it's been really great. And hopefully we can, keep chatting online
Yeah, if there's
about how we
anything
can
you
help each
need,
other out. Yeah.
absolutely, mate. If there's anything you need, just drop me a message. It'd be brilliant to keep in touch.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
And
Brett.
remember, look after yourself first so you can look after
Oh,
others.
brilliant.
We'll see you
Yeah,
next
it's
time.
lovely. Yeah, appreciate it, mate. No, thanks, buddy. Take care, mate. See you
Cool.
later.
Thanks, mate.